Okay, so you do your thing.
Okay, we hold on. We just had one of the new replacements that showed up, so after I announced them, we'll recognize you.
Are you interested in being a student senator? No.
Okay, can I please see the? Everyone, order please. Thank you. The poll is now closed on Bill 2025-024, a bill to fund KU bowling. On the question of passage, in favor 38, opposed 4, abstaining 1. Accordingly, this bill clearly passes. Before we proceed to the next item of regular legislation, I've been informed that we now have Camilla Brown, Senator for the School of Law, in attendance. Could we please get a catch box back, and I will recognize you to just introduce yourself to Student Senate.
I'm not going to put that.
Here, I got it.
The meeting tonight is full of cowards.
Whoa, that's a statement.
Hello, my name is Camilla. Oh, quite loud. My name is Camilla Brown. I'm a first-year law student at KU Law, I suppose. And I'm supposed to be acclimated tonight as a new senator.
You have been acclimated.
Oh,
Welcome to Student Senate. Yes, if you have any issues voting, please come up to the table during the next poll, and we will get that sorted for you.
The attendance poll is in the voting channel. Please still fill it out.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now proceed to our next item of regular legislation, Bill 2025-026, a bill to fund combat robotics. This bill would allocate $2,500 of Wednesday night funding. We are reviewing the version of the bill that was amended by the Finance Council. How much time would you like?
Can we go for 12 minutes?
12 minutes? Sure. The presenters from Combat Robotics are recognized for a 12-minute presentation and questions. Please give your attention to our presenters.
Hello, my name is Jared Prince, and I'm the current president for KU Combat Robotics.
I'm Phil Joswara, and I'm the electrical lead and also the treasurer for KU Combat Robotics.
Hi, my name is Gloria Gladden. I'm a sophomore in mechanical engineering, and I'm also our drive lead.
So basically, this is kind of our presentation to go over like our funding bill, and basically the way it's going to go is we're going to kind of introduce ourselves so you guys know like who we are and like what we do, and then we're going to talk about our budget and like what we actually need to do for like the money and stuff like that, and then we'll talk about logistics and then questions. So basically,
this is just forever. Whoever's talking, could you stand for the close to the microphone?
oh
please?
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so like, what is Combat Robotics? Like, what is this club? I've never heard of it. Like, what's our mission, right? So Combat Robotics, our goal is kind of to teach engineering skills through fun and like creative ways and hands-on ways, basically. And what better way to do that than through smashing robots, you know? So basically, our club is aiming to create like a club of continuous learning and like development and like improvement, or basically through combat, you will be forced to improve and work on improving your skills, engineering theories, and all that stuff. Because, you know, what better way to improve than to have your design just smashed in over, like destroyed, you know, like you'll be forced to improve basically. And so just the nature of combat robotics kind of forces you to get good and make your design better. And so basically this club aims to turn theory into reality, because we all learn about different theories. For example, like in material science, we learn about like different like materials and how they all work and all that stuff. But you don't really know like what all this stuff you're reading like actually physically is until but in this club you can see it. Like you can read like metal breaks at a certain force, but to actually see that happen is a completely different story, you know? So basically this club allows us to turn theory into actual practical and like seeable things basically.
Thank you. So moving on. So for some of our short-term goals, so it'll be researching additional competitions. So once we have more allocated fundings for the future, when we attain sponsorships and other means of funding, getting our club members to be able to participate in other smaller scale or even higher scale weight class competitions. And of course, reaching out to prospective students and sponsors to attain this funding, and then getting a broader reach of everybody that would like to be participating and even learning how to design and even manufacture these combat robotics. And of course, each member that wants to can become trained and certified to use the machine shop. A lot of the things and one of the big problems of the School of Engineering at the moment is people that are not in mechanical engineer or that is not a mechanical engineer cannot use the machine shop, or is just not really in a good mind. They're not really allocated for other majors, and the only ways to get in there is through an organization that already has access to the machine shop for some way, or to take the machine shop class. And hopefully the big part about this club is that we're getting everyone trained up that wants to do machining, and to get them into the door and learn about the machining side of fabrication. And of course, we want to compete in the BOTS KC competition, which is a 15-pound weight class competition in the spring of 2025. And that's our current goal that we're designing for, and hopefully for this next semester building towards.
All right, so going into our long-term goals, we have 3 overarching goals. First, to create; second, to compete; and last, to equip. First, when it comes to creating, we want to design robots in all weight classes. So you're probably more familiar with the BattleBots, and those are incredible 100, 200, 300-pound robots. We're not there yet, but we want to experiment and take our robots and scale them up or down, depending on our crowd. We also want to experiment with new materials and design. So reactive armor is one thing. We want to figure out how we should do our weapons, whether that be blades or hammers.
And moving on to the competition side. So we want to compete in national competitions. So BOTS KC is one of them. That's the one we're aiming and designing towards for the following spring semester. And that is one competition that both Missouri S&T and K-State goes to. And it'd be nice to have a team from KU to be able to compete against those two rivaling schools and be able to show them our engineering prowess. But after that, a far larger goal, once we show and we maintain and we develop more of this organization, is we want to morph into applying to the BattleBots organization and getting accepted and competing in that national competition, and saying that, hey, KU has a BattleBots team here, and being able to upscale the way we test the robots and even participate in that national competition. And of course, we want to create and rent out an arena to host a competition in Lawrence as well. The only other competition that is nearby is the BOTS KC competition, or a annual competition that K-State hosts.
All right, and lastly, so we want to provide useful training to our club members. Like we mentioned before, there aren't that many mechanical engineering focused organizations. So we want to equip our members in things like 3D modeling, even machining, so SolidWorks, lathes, anything of that sort, in order to get hands-on experience that isn't fun for just these 4 years, but they can actually take that into industry.
Okay, so now that you know a little bit about our club, we can now talk about the finances and all the money stuff. So basically, we requested initially $5,500 from the Student Senate. However, we got cut down to only allowing $2,860 for our maximum amount. So I had to do a lot of budget cuts to get it all to fit. And so it's lowered down to $2,500 now, which is how much we've been allocated, which isn't on there, but it's $2,500. That's the maximum we can get. And so this cost, I did a breakdown summary of where it all go to, but we'll go into detail on the next slide. But basically, all of the money is basically going straight towards the club, straight towards the robot. So it's like all essential parts for the robot. So most of it is materials, because materials for robots are really expensive, like metals and electronics and all that stuff is really expensive. So that's where the bulk of the cost goes. And then we also have a little bit of it going towards like the tools and also the reusable components. So we have like, let's see, like the battery chargers and stuff like that. So that's like stuff we can reuse for future years and things like that. And then we initially planned to have a little bit of like miscellaneous amount, because prices go up and down a bit. And so a lot of things go out of stock, because RC like components and like BattleBots are in the same range, and they're always going out of stock, and metals going up and down with the metal prices. So there's a lot of fluctuation in prices, which is what that buffer zone is, but that's basically the brief overview. And then to go more into depth on where each thing goes, I'm not gonna read out everything unless you want me to, but the majority of the cost goes basically just straight to metals. Like our armor is really expensive and our frame is really expensive, but without those things, we would just not have a robot. And so most after electronics, or sorry, after the metal and the armor, the rest of the cost goes towards our weapons, and then also our electronics and all the other stuff like that.
All right, so looking at our current fundraising efforts, the first thing we have is a partnership with ASME. So I'm currently the Professional Development Officer of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And through that, we are working to get a partnership with Kiewit to sponsor our club. And then through that, get a grant for $1,000 from ASME. So that is what we're working towards right now.
And of course, for future fundraising efforts, we want to look towards corporate sponsors. So Hobby King and Castle Creation are two of the main component websites that we get most of the components from, as you'll see in the budget document. But specifically getting sponsorship from Castle Creations themselves would half the cost of our components and require, if we ever get any components from them, it'll be much better to get it from them as a sponsored, from us being sponsored from them for future future components we need to get from them.
Okay, so we know that funding is it's hard to get funding, so we do have backup plans for our club. However, I gotta restate that without the funding, our club would not be able to do any of the competitions. We wouldn't be able to compete in the 15-pound weight class, and we would have to cut back on a lot of the stuff because without money, it's hard to machine anything because you can't really practice machining without metal to machine on. It's hard to build electronics without having electronics or all that stuff. So basically, we have to scale it down to a smaller scale robots like nano class bots, which cost like $15 to $20, and they'd be 3D printed. And I don't know how we get the money for that, but we'd have to. They're smaller scale and they're easy to create, and it's a good way to get freshmen at a cheap price because you can just give them bots and they're not that expensive. So we can focus on building up our club, and we'll also focus on fundraising and also working on our workshops and all our design stuff. Because while we don't have the funds and the materials, we can still work on trying to secure funds for the future, and also improving our our teaching skills and our skills so that when we do get money and funding, then we can actually employ them. And then also we're going to do some more research so that we can be prepared for when we get materials and money.
So moving on to logistics. In our Discord, we have 75 members with an average attendance of 8 people and 62 followers on Instagram. Our current meeting times is 7 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday and lead to 24-25, and 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday is a virtual open exec meeting on Discord.
Right, so taking a look at freshman and member acquisition. First thing is we want to provide more opportunities for freshmen to get involved. So while there are certain technical clubs at the University of Kansas, not many of them can you get involved in at a freshman level. So part of our main goal is getting them involved in design and machining. Next is extensive CAD. So like I mentioned before, we want to make sure that we equip our members with skills that they can take past graduation. So part of that would be computer-aided design as well as machining. You do take a course as a freshman in mechanical engineering, but we want to kind of expound on that and give them even more application to what they learn. Lastly, or second to last, we want to house combat robot events. So we kind of mentioned before, making smaller robots for our members to compete with against, and then early introduction to machining. So like before, you can't really get into a machine shop unless you're a mechanical engineer. So if you're interested in that, and maybe that's not your major, we want to create that outlet for our members. Looking again at our additional plans for membership acquisition, like I mentioned before, we are partnered with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. So we would be grouped under one of their 4 technical divisions under mechatronics, and then also a partnership with KU Robotics Organization. So members that are interested in this can join our team. They can be funneled towards us.
So moving on to training. When it comes to training, we want to go through we want all our members that do want to do machining to go through the Machine Shop EHS training. So there are outline courses, part of the EHS course on Canvas that you can take. And there are outline courses that the Machine Shop folks require of you to take in order to have the capabilities of being able to step inside the Machine Shop. And once through there, being able to take the gateways and be Machine Shop certified. Additionally, other trainings we'll be doing is electrical assembly when it comes to circuitry and soldering. And lastly is our SolidWorks workshop where we hosted one actually yesterday, and it was recorded by one of our members, a 5+ year like SolidWorks certified member, teaching. He taught a lot of useful skills to be applied in classes and other projects in industry, and better ways to just be able to model. But those are the main trainings.
The presenter's time has expired. Is there a motion to extend time?
Motion to extend time by 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Hearing none, 3 additional minutes. Please continue. Sorry.
That was pretty much it. Any questions?
Are there any questions for the presenters? Yes, Community Student Senator for the Black Student Union.
Okay, first, this is like Fire Guys, like this is some like Big Hero 6, like it's some type of stuff like that. So I'm sure everybody else in here has never really kind of seen this live in action. So I heard weapons, like kind of break this down for us. So 2 bots are in a ring. What happens? Like, how do you know who's a winner? How do you know? And I also have a follow-up after that, by the way. So.
Okay, it depends on the competition, but the one I went to last year, basically it's either the last person standing, or if you like knock them, like if you make them unable to move for a certain amount of time, they also count as losing. Or if you basically like show more aggression, basically like they have judges. They have 3 judges on the side, and basically whoever is deemed more aggressive, if it's like a tie, like nothing's like, if the bots are still working, they see who's like done the most damage and stuff like that, and then they make a judgment. But most of the time, bots just explode and are completely destroyed.
So there's definitely some
it's
actual
like last
damage
person
there.
standing, yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead for your follow-up.
can I do follow up?
Mhm.
Okay, follow up. Well, this is really a follow up about that. But this is expensive. So I wanted to ask. I'm assuming this might go into the School of Engineering. Have you guys requested any funding from them, because that is a big school that has a lot of money to give?
Yes. So we did initially go through engineering. We were planning to go through engineering. However, because we just started up recently, we're unable to go through engineering for, I think it's FAC.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit more on that. So one of the 2 main ways of funding for the School of Engineering is department funding and FAC funding. And us being a new organization, we were past the deadline for requesting for department funding. And in order to request for FAC funding, it all depends on your departmental matching and other fundraising efforts you've created. So being a new organization, we're basically here as like a startup, and we have our group together of people that really want to get this up and running, and other folks in the Discord that want to be more hands-on rather than the design side. And that's why we're here, since we're not able to get any funding from the School of Engineering. And basically, once this is up and running, then we shouldn't be back here. This is just our kind of like our startup, and once the future year, for our following year, we'll be able to go through the School of Engineering and then go through the entire process to get FAC funding as well.
I believe we had a question from Joel, your National Undergraduate Senator.
Yes. Hi. You actually answered the first part. Well, you answered my question. So I was going to ask if this was a new club, and I think could you kindly tell us what that process looks like as a new club starting at KU? You've already shared some of the difficulties you've had requesting for funding, but could you just give us a more thorough talk about how that process to start a club, I think for the senators here, how that process looks like, challenges you faced, and what scaling looks like?
Can you repeat the last thing?
What scaling up looks like difficulties scaling up. Essentially, where senators tell us your problems as a new club so we can learn from them.
Yeah, so it actually all started up roughly last year. I was in a class with a friend of mine that I just met in our economics course, and he happened to do a similar robotics club in high school. And one of the key things we realized as being mechanical engineers, there's only really one organization you can go into, and that is Jayhawk Motorsports. So that's a really big organization at KU, and especially for mechanical engineers. And that is basically the only mechanical engineering club that people could join into. I mean, you could join you can join other organizations like more towards the aero side with the Jayhawk Air Design and the Rocketry Club, or even head towards the other robotics organization that focus on various, not too sure the various projects they focus on specifically, but you could head into that area where we just saw that there needed to be a need, and the need was there needed to be a new mechanical engineering organization here at KU to allow another group of people coming into KU that maybe daunted by like the scaling of JMS to be able to come to a more lower scale club. The lower scale club to learn basic skills and even further the skills they would be learning in their mechanical engineering courses. And I guess starting it up, it was one of the big parts because you have to find people that really are passionate about starting things up and who have a passion and driven to wanting to start something new. So that started off with small meetings in Anschutz library, since we can't get any we try to find a centralized location that would be close to everybody, and we started having weekly meetings to try to get a plan going of how to start a new organization here at KU. What are the different steps and what do we need to look for? And the process basically went that we need a faculty advisor, and figuring out means of ways of figuring out that faculty advisor, presenting, and then after that is setting up the plans for like the following year and like how structure will be setting up. I think throughout that time was also figuring out the funding areas and trying to figure out how funding would work. And I think after setting all of that up, being slightly in the dark of how funding works in the School of Engineering kind of led to not being able to do it in time, since we're basically started up pretty late into the semester. And one of the requirements for like funding, at least for FAC, is being needing to be a registered organization for 6 months. So although we were meeting during those times, we were not a registered organization. And through those ways, that was basically the different ways that we started up. I think the biggest struggle was just trying to figure out how to go. And I think starting something up new has been a very big learning opportunity for everyone involved when it comes to just figuring out how a startup happens. I think it is more of like a business. So if anything, we learn a lot of ways of how the School of Engineering works, how Student Senate works, how starting something new works. And I think anybody on board of this process was able to learn through that process. And I think it was a very good opportunity for those to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. The speaker's time is now expired again. Is there a motion to extend time? We can also have a motion to amend or a motion to end discussion. Yes. Motion from Sophie Tarian, first-year student senator, to end discussion and vote.
Graduate student senator.
Graduate student senator, I'm sorry. I downgraded you so much there. Okay, sorry. The motion is to end discussion. Is there a second? I see a second from the student body vice president. Is there any objection at this point to ending discussion and moving to a vote? Hearing none, thank you very much. Great presentation. Remember to grab your flash drive.
Thank you.
The poll is now posted in the voting channel. For all of our existing student senators and all of our newly appointed student senators, if you're having trouble accessing this poll, which you should be able to under the student senate teams, please come to the front and we will get this sorted for you. This will be a 1.5-minute vote. A vote in favor is a vote to allocate $2,500 to combat robotics. A vote opposed is a vote to not allocate any funding. how you do this presentation? Time. I'll give you 5 questions. Everyone, the poll for Bill 2025-026 is now closed. On the question of passage, in favor 38, opposed 4, abstaining 1. Accordingly, Bill 2025-026 is passed. We will proceed to our next item of regular legislation, Bill 2025-023, a bill to amend the membership of the Community Development Fund Advisory Board. This is a constitutional amendment. The Fund Development Director is recognized to present for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so as I'm sure many of you guys know, under the new reorganization from the university, now the Center for Sexuality and Gender Diversity, the Emily Taylor Center, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and the Student Involvement and Leadership Center have all been reorganized into the overarching kind of umbrella center, the Student Engagement Center. So as things currently stand on the Community Development Fund, there are 3 voting seats, one from each of from the OMA, the SGD, and the ETC. They all currently have 1 voting seat. And since those organizations no longer exist, we are unable to fill those seats with any voting representatives. So this bill just takes those 3 seats, one from the SGD, one from the ETC, and one from the OMA, and gives 3 voting seats to the Student Engagement Center. The process will be identical. Those 3 representatives will be appointed by the director of the SEC, just how that process functioned previously. So nothing's changing. It's just allowing those 3 seats to be filled, because right now we're just short 3 voting members, and on a board of 9, that a third of the people can't ever come. So that's about it. Are there any questions?
Questions for the Fund Development Director? I'm seeing one in the back from Matvey. Could we please get a catch box over?
Yes, thank you, Matvey, on-campus senator. Yeah, so clearly that's just like a technical renaming of these positions. My only question is, since now there is only 1 director, are we sure we want to make 1 person appoint all 3 of these representatives? It's kind of a lot of power. Don't we want to give this power to some other people inside of this SEC?
So that's a good question, and that question was raised when I was presenting it in council. So I wrote this bill after discussing it with Dr. Kevin Joseph, who's the faculty advisor. He works in student affairs. He's our advisor for the Community Development Fund. And his guidance that he gave me when writing this was, this is essentially the only way that we'll be able to get those seats filled. So what he told me, and he's had extensive conversations with Jordan, the director of the SEC. She is operating under the understanding that she will be appointing, generally speaking, 1 person that generally speaking represents each of these demographics. But procedurally and practically, there's no way for them to have 3 different people appoint 3 different representatives on the board with the new reorganization. So essentially, this is the best solution possible.
Further questions? All right, seeing none. Oh, sorry. Community Student Senator for Rosetown.
Yeah, so you mentioned that they're supposed to represent each of these 3 demographics. Is there a reason that we don't formalize that one should represent this one should represent this one?
And again, I think that kind of ties back into what I'd already mentioned. From what I've heard from the director of the center, and she's the former director of the OMA, and now is the director of the SEC. My conversations with the director and with our faculty advisor, there is no way to do that. And I don't have enough of an understanding of the back end procedures that happen at the SEC to give a specific answer to why that is. But that is what I've been informed of. And so this was the solution that I'm going to present tonight.
I can add a small point here. Specifying that they have to specifically be from a demographic of students may create some issues with state or federal legislation. Does that sound fair? Fair enough. We don't have the exact answer at this point, but there's a potential. Further questions? Seeing none, are there any motions on the floor? Student body vice
Motion to
president?
vote on the proposed legislation.
Yes. Is there a second name position, please? Jack Shelton, Business School Senator. Thank you very much. Is there any objection to proceeding to a vote on this legislation? Hearing none, we will proceed to a vote. We will get that poll posted. The poll is now live under the Assembly voting channel. We are doing such a good job. A vote in favor is a vote to adopt this amendment and change the membership of the Community Development Fund Board as follows. A vote opposed is a vote to leave the article as it is currently. This will be a 1.5-minute vote. Please fill out the poll if you can.
We need the enthusiasm, Chris. Yes.
I don't have enthusiasm tonight.
You got the caffeine. That'll help.
Like when he's up. Hey, you want to see something fun? Look, you can see me raising the hand in the projector too, with the delay.
This is live.
Yeah.
Let's keep this professional. Come on, Chris.
God forbid a man have a bit of fun. Oop. Let's get that deleted. Order, please. The poll for Bill 2025-023 is now closed. On the question of passage, in favor 41, opposed 1, abstaining 4. Accordingly, Bill 2025-023 is passed. We will proceed to our last item of regular legislation for tonight, Bill 2025-025, a bill to amend Title II, Article 2 to accurately reflect constituencies and amend Title II, Article 3 to accurately reflect voting rights. This legislation will be presented by our Internal Affairs Director. How much time would you like?
7.
7 minutes.
Just so we don't have to extend.
The Internal Affairs Director is recognized for 7 minutes. On the minutes is the Chair of the Finance Council. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing that this does is it officially splits the class senators into 2 separate constituencies, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. We've been operating like this since I've been here, since the president's been here. However, it's not been reflected in our constitution, and this has caused issues during elections. That's why this past spring you saw you just had the option, if you were a class person, to just vote for 24 people, and then kind of internally we separated those out into freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So it doesn't functionally change anything. It just clears things up, makes it easier. Secondly, with clearing things up, making things easier, added a little line. If you want to scroll down to, oh, I have some. I did.
It's in the drawer.
Okay. So the second thing it does is it just adds a little line clarifying that you can run for right here any constituency that you represent, because previously it to only our international or non-traditional students. So for example, if you're a double major, you can choose whichever school to run for that when you do your candidacy declaration, or to be a replacement center. That's why it's select all. And then there's that division there. And then the third thing this does is gives officially the graduate student body president voting rights in student councils. The reason why this amendment is so long is because I took everything that I know of in the Constitution that speaks on this issue, and I put it in there so that you can see all the evidence and decide for yourself what the Constitution seems to point to. There's a lot of inconsistencies in our Constitution, and this is one of hopefully many amendments that we have that fixes our poor Constitution. If you recognize any issues, I'd be happy for you to come up and tell me about them at some point. And so what happened was, because there's not that many graduate students in Senate, and graduate students are supposed to have equal representation, a couple of years ago, the graduate president made a amendment to give the graduate president voting rights. This is unique compared to other executive officers who do not have voting or speaking rights in assembly or councils. And so this updates that, because that amendment was not correctly updated in the Constitution right here. And then, like I said, adds that they do get in councils. Any questions?
Any questions for the Internal Affairs Director, Student Body Vice President?
I have two questions. My first question, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down. What was the rationale behind crossing out Student Body Vice President and changing it to Speaker of the Students' Assembly, who will inform the Internal Affairs
Yes,
Director?
thank you for reminding me about that. This is a clue that this is a outdated part of the Constitution, because previously, before we made the position of Speaker last year, the Student Body Vice President was the presiding officer, so they sat there with the gavel. And so the graduate president would have informed them about councils. But obviously, we don't have that anymore. We have the Speaker, so added Speaker. And then sometimes in the Constitution, it's the Speaker's job. Sometimes it's Internal Affairs. So I just put it together that the Speaker who would inform Internal Affairs Director. So again, not functionally changing anything, just updating it on that piece.
Okay,
Great
thank you.
question.
And then my
Did you have
second,
a
I did
follow-up?
say I had two questions when I started. The second part of my question was, given this proposed legislation, how many graduate student voting seats would there be?
There would be 7 plus the graduate president, 8, because there's yeah.
Okay, so it'd be 8. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I'm seeing one from Joel.
Joel, international undergrad. My question is, should this bill not pass, what is the consequence if we were, well, you said we are already implementing some of these amendments. So should they not pass today officially to change the Constitution? What does that mean for how we've been running things, and what happens, I don't know, next week?
Should the bill not pass? Honestly, since we ignore a lot of things in the Constitution, nothing would change. The thing that would be the most likely to change is that chairs recognize definitely don't recognize the graduate president for voting rights in councils.
Follow up?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do we have in Senate, and perhaps I could refer to the Constitution, do we have an arm or a specific a specific position or executive position who enforces the Constitution at Senate? If we had amendments changed, but the Constitution doesn't state them, and we were running things that the Constitution didn't state, whose role is that to enforce that we are doing things that are not in the Constitution?
I can
So
answer it as a parliamentary matter if you want.
sure. Oh, you say your thing first.
So the presiding officers of the legislative meetings are responsible for taking points of order for violations of the Constitution during their meetings. So for example, someone could currently raise a point of order that the graduate student body president cannot cast a vote in the student councils. And I believe with the current provisions, that presiding officer would then have to no longer count the graduate student body president's vote.
And then also the internal affairs role is to update the Constitution.
Thank you.
Question from the chair of the Community Affairs Council. Can we please pass over a catch box?
Thank you. So you specifically mentioned the speaking and voting rights in student councils. However, the graduate president is still mentioned as an exception.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that part is still going to be in the Constitution. We could change that next cycle. But since that's its own separate thing, I didn't change that. I was just changing this one subclause under the class academic senator section. So yeah, technically the Constitution still would contradict itself even with this update. We could have an amendment here to like just delete the graduate president from this portion of the Constitution if that's something that we want to do.
Are there any further questions? Matt Vey, can we please get the catch box thrown back?
Chris, how are we doing on time? How are we doing on time?
Sorry, zero.
Can we
Could we, sorry, I was not watching the timer. Could we please get an extension from time graduate student body president? Extension 5 minutes. Is there a second? I'm seeing a second from the Fund Development Director. Any objection to extending the speaker's time by 5 minutes? Hearing none, extended, and then speaker recognizes Matt Vey.
Yeah, just a brief question. I'm trying to understand. So in section 2, where we make the students, where we make the graduate student body president a voting member of the Students' Assembly instead of non-voting, is it just a reconciliation between parts, or are we changing this thing? And if we are changing, then why are we making him a voting member?
This portion on the screen, right? This is just correctly reflecting a amendment from a couple years ago, giving them voting rights in assembly. Does that answer your question?
Further questions?
We have been operating off the graduate president gets voting rights in assembly this year.
Further questions for the Internal Affairs Director? Joel, did you still have one?
Oh no, I was going to do a motion to amend.
Cash box? There's one right in front of them.
Motion to amend the section that the Community Affairs Director, brought up.
The chair of the committee.
Chair of the committee, yeah.
So
Thanks.
since this is a constitutional amendment and it would be, the version that we amend would be final after this, if you are making an amendment, I would want us to go into committee of the whole to actually decide the wording of this before we pass it. I can also say that if this amendment is passed tonight, I will make sure that the substance of it is brought forward into the revision. And also my interpretation of it would be that what we are changing would supersede any current conflicting sections of the Constitution, since it would be the clear intention of the Students' Assembly to change this part of the graduate student body president's role in Student Senate. Chair of the Community Affairs Council. So I'll keep that pending for now.
I just have a question. So you're saying that these two sections conflict, but one is saying the part that was amended gives the graduate student body president voting rights in assembly, but it doesn't say anything about councils. So how are they conflicting if one is assembly and one is councils? It's just my question.
So.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was looking
No,
at
you're
the-
good.
Okay. You had a different portion. Hold up.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that your answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
So it's confusing, guys. I know. I melted my brain writing this one.
Okay, are there any further questions for the Internal Affairs Director? Is your motion to amend, are you still making that?
Would you like a yes or no answer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's been moved to amend this bill to clarify. Was it the contradicting section for the student council voting rights?
It'd be Title II, Article 13, Section 1, Subsection 2.
What he said.
You're gonna have to. Can you pull it up on there?
Boing.
Yeah.
Doesn't there need to be a motion to, Chris, doesn't there need to be a motion to enter committee of the whole?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm just trying to figure out where the thing is.
It's
I'm not
right there,
following.
the top.
It's
number 2.
it's this section that's copied right here.
Member of the president's cabinet, graduate president shall speaking of voting rights in the councils,
With the exception of the graduate president.
with the exception. Okay.
So,
So the motion would be to strike out graduate president. Would that be the entirety of the motion?
Yes, and the comma, the
Okay.
extra comma.
Is this current, Robert, is this currently part of the enacting clauses, or would we have to copy this down?
we would copy this down and make it a new enacting clause.
Okay, thank you. I know where we are now. Is there a second to the amendment? I see a second from New School of Law Center. Can I get your name again, please? Sam, thank you. Excuse me one second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to clear up this contradiction with the graduate president being excluded from having voting or speaking rights in the student councils. Is there any objection to entering committee of the whole so that we can give this amendment form before it is voted on? Okay, hearing none. Do you mind if I jump the podium real quick? Does that look good?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Let's do that and bold this and delete this extra space. Any student in the University of Kansas eligible, previous attendance, all senators shall be voting members of a student council. Members of the student cabinet shall have speaking and voting rights with the exception of the president, vice president, chief of staff, and treasurer. 1/2 of voting members of student councils are constitute a quorum needed to conduct business. If a member has 2 or more consecutive unexcused absences, they shall lose current voting status in the council, defined in Title I. May assign to attend a different council and shall gain a new one. All student senate advisors appointed by student affairs shall be ex officio non-voting members of the student council to which they have been assigned. Joel, does this reflect the substance of the amendment you had in mind?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the form of this amendment?
To be clear, this also, with this new copy in there, fixes several grammatical issues of spacing that we had in the Constitution. But those are friendly amendment or like friendly changes. They don't change the substance.
Oh, that messed everything up. Never mind. Okay. So if there is no discussion on the form of this amendment, is there any objection to leaving committee of the whole and moving back to formal discussion? All right, hearing none. So it's been moved and seconded. We've given form to the amendment. Is there any discussion now on amending this bill to add in this additional part where we would strike out graduate president from the list of executive officers excluded from speaking and voting rights in the student councils? And again, I believe this is one of the goals of the bill This is just a provision that would conflict with it if it's not also amended. Any discussion on the amendment? All right, hearing none, we will proceed to vote on the amendment. Is there any objection to doing a voice vote on the amendment? Objection?
I object. Can we please do a Teams vote?
Fair enough.
Per the Constitution, can we do a Teams vote? Yes, it is.
Well, actually, first of all, is there any objection to making this amendment to the bill? All right, hearing none, the bill is amended accordingly. And now we are back on discussion of the bill itself. Okay, where we are currently, we've finished the presentation of this. We've made an amendment to add this extra enacting clause. This would clear up a conflict in the Constitution that would have occurred if the bill was enacted without it. Is there any further discussion on this bill? We are at the point where negative speeches are in order. All right, I'm seeing no negative speeches on the floor. Are there any motions relating to this bill, such as a motion to vote or a motion for another amendment? Joel?
Motion to vote.
I hear a motion from Joel, International Undergraduate Senator, to vote on the bill. I see a second from the chair of the Community Affairs Council. Is there any objection to ending discussion on Bill 2025-025 and proceeding to the vote on passage? Hearing none, we will have this poll posted in the Students' Assembly voting channel. Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Period.
It is 025.
No.
Oh, this is our last thing for tonight. We could actually get out of here in like the next couple minutes. Okay, the poll is now posted under the Students' Assembly voting channel. Please fill this out if you can. A vote in favor is a vote to make these amendments to the Student Senate Constitution to change the graduate student body president's responsibilities and voting rights. A vote opposed is a vote to make no change to the graduate student body president's voting rights. This will be a 1.5-minute vote. The threshold for passage is 2/3.
Can't even send out polls.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
She was like, "Is this someone taking notes?" You should have skipped Robert's. Yeah, you should have.
No, I literally can't. That's like not. And then this time I did not do. After I finished my notes.
Because I just know. Us. It's like,
Student rights postponed because they want to make it an academic. Wait, no, they want to make it a community. Yeah. Yes, they want to make it a community. Which doesn't really line up with how they actually work in reality. So they're trying to. But yeah, that's.
Order, please. The poll on Bill 2025-025 is now closed. On the question of passage, in favor 37, opposed 2, abstaining 2. Accordingly, Bill 2025-025 is passed. This concludes our discussion of legislation for tonight. Are there any announcements to be made to the assembly? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? I see a motion from the Community Student Senator for OSTEM. I see a second from Jack Rasmussen. Is there any objection to adjourning? Hearing none, have a good evening, everyone. I will see you next week.
Oh God. Because you don't expect to be out. I know.
Samuel Lewis. Samuel Lewis.
I'm walking out with you. Oh, we don't have things to talk about. I hope not. Run. I'm just trying to get the new senators in finance. I don't know. I was wondering that. LSAT study, probably. I don't know. Finance is pretty cool. Community affairs is the place to be. All right. You guys get a new name. Yeah, big ego. Discuss more.
If they no, you can't like take that away from the right that you have by being a student. And that applying to them made sense at the time when everything conflicted, right? But now that we're clearing up the confliction, that we voted on that, then it's pretty clear that there's intention to exclude.
We can let her talk first. Oh, that the organizations have to partake in service hours? I'm perfectly fine with that also.
I don't know. I just
Thanks for coming.
Also.
Yeah, to my knowledge. Yeah, I know, that's the real struggle. Find new members. Can we convince all of the new senators to join finance? Yes. Good choice. I'm the chair of it.
Yeah, Megan's the chair of finance. She's great.
Thank you.
Oh, you want to be on community affairs? Great. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us.
I gave a telephone.
Have ideas for legislation that you would like us to consider, reach out and I can help you write it or like discuss any potential issues that you can. It's part of my responsibilities. Even if I disagree with legislation, I wanted to be robust and know.
So I'd like to.
Yep, have a good evening.
See, my mother was a teacher. Yeah, it's like a whole page.
Oh, yeah. Shay, do we still have Shay? She's inside. You get her, I don't think we closed the live stream. Oh, no.
We could just live stream the room all night.
There was, so Ashley, or the chief of staff is Anna Catholic. I believe she's currently in the exec office. What?
Ashley actually, I said that she wasn't gonna be here, but she said she would join.
Like the girl who presented for bowling was my roommate last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Live stream doesn't count as participation.
It doesn't?
No, you need to be here in person. Why?
Well,
live
Because we had, there was a whole fight. My
Right, so there's
freshman
wanting to
year.
have hybrid meetings.
Yes.
That's
There
not
was a
right.
massive fight that it couldn't be.
Thank you, Shay.
Oh,